Hi guys, good morning, happy Monday. This is PED305, exploring sport and exercise psychology, week 2. I'm recording this on Zoom, but we're also live on YouTube, okay, just in case. For today, I'm gonna give you some feedback concerning your last week's submissions. We're going to cover chapters 2 and 3, and also I'm going to remind you what you have to submit by Sunday. All right, so I will share my screen and I will go to Moodle and let's see. There we go. All right, so this is our Moodle site. So everything that I do, I post right here, right? And you get that email. So we're done with week 1. Most of you submitted ECLO, which I've already graded and shared with you. And of course, this happens automatically. So concerning LO1, I don't have a specific question item to address. You did very well. The mean score is 9.7 out of 10, so 97%, excuse me, which means you did absolutely great, especially if you consider that it was the very first week. I hope you practiced enough with learning game 1, because as we move to week 2, which is this one, right, we're going to be covering chapters 2 and 3, science and professional practice of sport and exercise psych, and 3, personality and sport, which means for this Sunday midnight, by Sunday midnight, you have to submit LO2, okay? You have to submit learning game 2, okay? That's for chapter 2. And then for chapter 3, very similarly, LO3, and then LT3. Cool. Don't forget the learning games have a time restriction, so play with this one a little bit in practice before you move to this one. These 2 are for chapter 2, and these 2 right here are for chapter 3. We good? All right. Let's go now into the main part, which is covering those 2 chapters. I'm not going to be stopping on every slide. However, I'm going to be putting emphasis on things I really want you to understand and comprehend. But if there's something that is not clear enough, I'm right here throughout the week, even before your submissions. Send me an email via Moodle, or using our email accounts. And of course, tomorrow, office hours from 3 to 7:30 Eastern time, and I'll be sending a link tomorrow morning, a Zoom link. Log in. Let's talk about anything. All right? Okay. You survived week 1. That was the most important thing. Congratulations. Let's move to week 2. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and at least show this one, and then I'm going to go and share my screen concerning, give me 1 second, concerning chapter 2, which is, the second introductory chapter that we have. Pretty basic, but very important in its own sense. All right, here we go. Chapter 2, science and professional practice of sport and psych. All right. Let's see if this is going to work. Okay. This is not working. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to try sharing again because I want to obviously make sure this works. Okay, at least this one works. Okay, click it works now. Excellent. So in psychology, we have a lot of theories, right? Because it's the way the science is. And we see what is called a process or a method of learning, and then we see that the ultimate goal of science, of sport and exercise psychology, is creating theories. Okay, why is that important? Well, this is important. I don't know what's going on with this. Okay, I'll change it this way. This is important because a theory can describe, explain a phenomenon, but also predict, right? If a theory is well established, then we can predict pretty much the future under certain circumstances, right? So we see some definitions about theories, and at the very end we have a quote: "There's nothing more practical than a good theory." Of course, if a theory again is checked again and again and again and again, and it stands, then it's very, very, very practical if you think about it. Throughout our slideshow, PowerPoint slideshows, you'll see a lot of videos. I'm not going to play most of them throughout the semester. However, I would love if you had the time, you would like to invest the time, because they add. It's not only my video. Those are world-renowned experts that can really help you understand more, or even intrigue you to learn more. Okay. This is something I want to stop for a second and explain the difference. Okay. When you take research methods, a brand new course that we're going to be offering, we're going to go over things like that in way more depth. However, for now, let's talk about the difference between study, an observational study, and an experiment. So in the very first case, I'm examining something, but I'm not intervening in any way other than observing a phenomenon. Okay. So for example, I sit in bleachers and I observe the coach as he or she is coaching during practice, and I write down how many positive versus negative comments he or she make. Okay. And I create a ratio, and then I'm trying to see if their style is effective or not based on that ratio. And I'm trying to establish a relationship. Okay. In an experiment, I intervene and I'm trying to manipulate one or more variables. For example, I do that observation, right? And then maybe I take the coach out and I take the coach through a workshop, 2-week workshop, right? And then I put them back in practice and I observe how that ratio changed between positive and negative comments. So I manipulated something, and then I wanted to see the effect of that manipulation on whatever I was trying to observe for whatever reasons. Okay. Now, you'll see some other examples of studies and some other examples of experiments. I want to stay right down here. You see that term, cause-effect relationship. The cause-effect relationship is important because I can pretty much establish how or why something is happening. With an observational study, for example, this, I don't find the reason. I find the relationship. I find the connection. I say the 20 fastest runners, have higher scores of self-talk or goal setting. Okay, so I see that on average, if you have higher goal setting, you are faster. But I don't know why this is happening because I never investigated that. I just observed. Here, I'm trying to figure out why it's happening. As I said, and if you remember, you're manipulating some variables. You have usually, let's say, the simplest design two groups, right? One, you let them be, you call it control group. The other one, you intervene and you do some kind of manipulation. And then maybe you do pre and post intervention measurements, and you're trying to see if there is any difference between um, the groups, or before and after intervention, or whatever kind of design you have. But because now you're manipulating variables, you have some evidence, and you're trying to create that cause and effect relationship. So this is happening, or this is not happening because of that. And that could be the intervention. That could be the variable that you manipulated. Okay, so this is more observational. This is more actually trying to find that why. Okay, both of them are important. Both of them are important. Um, let's talk a little bit about professional practice knowledge. Some people may call it anecdotally based evidence, right? So, which happens a lot with coaching and athletes. They do things um, the way they do, and based on their experience, they keep doing them or they change them a little bit. They don't have any other they don't have explanations per se, but they know it's working. And since it's working and it's been working, they want to keep doing it. Okay, up here with the scientific or empirically based knowledge or evidence, we do research, we manipulate variables, and we make a case about why is it happening. Okay, both of them are important, but they're different. In terms of speed, this is faster, this is slower. In terms of bias, and by bias we mean quality of evidence. This has higher quality of evidence because it's been proven at under specific conditions, and it was controlled, and the methods, specific methods and procedures, and so on and so forth. This one down here has more bias. Okay, both of them, again, as I said, about an observational study and an experiment, and here anecdotally based and empirically based evidence, or scientific based evidence. Both of them are important for different reasons. Both of them should exist. Okay. And a lot of times down here, have a trial and error that the coaches do. The coaches a lot of times cannot wait for the scientists, for example, to manipulate whatever they want to manipulate and come out with conclusions and publish. They need answers now. So a lot of times, we have that anecdotally based evidence. It's not bad, but a lot of times we need to take it and prove it under under some kind of scientific conditions, so we can decrease or eliminate bias, if that makes sense. That you can study by yourselves. All right, science and art. The science of coaching is something that you can be taught. You take a book, for example, and you study it, and you learn everything. And you know the science of coaching. You know it. You studied it, you know it by heart. Okay, you know everything. The art of coaching now is taking that, right, and put it into a situation. So it's situational. A good coach takes the knowledge from the book, from the mentor, from even a YouTube video, right? And he or she apply that all that information. They apply that information in the context that they are, in the most appropriate way. Okay, so that will be the art of coaching. The art of coaching, you can't really learn it. It's about experience. It's about practice. It's about actually being a practitioner. Okay, you have to apply it. So I wanted to make a distinction between these two. Now, when we study psychology, there are at least three main orientations. Okay. Now, the psychophysiological orientation, which I personally like a lot, as you can see, examines connections between our physiology and our psyche. And a great example is sports neuroscience. And we've done sports neuroscience research in our lab in Plattsburgh. We have presented it, students have presented it, and we have the equipment to do more. We can do EEG, okay? Electroencephalogram, which is the thing that you put on your head, the cap, and you measure the brain waves during exercise. Anyway, so I also wanted to mention here that we have a course analyzing human movement, which you will take your third or fourth year in the spring, and we talk about sport neuroscience a lot or enough. So this is the psychophysiological orientation. That's an example. Sports neuroscience is a brand new example of that orientation. Socio-physiological orientation. Now, behavior depends on the interaction of your character, your personal makeup, and the social environment. I personally don't do research like that, but I know a lot of people who do. Okay. And then cognitive behavioral orientation is behavior now is it depends on both environment and thoughts, which is something I'm interested in and I am doing. And I measure mental toughness in sport. So in cases like that, we have instruments, we have measures, we have tools to measure those thoughts. For example, you see here burnout and confidence. They're trying to figure out the relationship between that in athletes. Of course, the future is bright. Positive psychology is huge movement. I didn't really want to go there, but I think maybe I should now that I'm mentioning. Positive psychology is a new movement in psychology and pretty much says, for example, mental toughness is underneath sports psychology. Pretty much says that, psychology was usually used for treating depression or something bad, especially, after World War II. And then Seligman, for example, scholars like Seligman came out and said, we don't have to use psychology only like that. We can be proactive, and we can also use it to counter qualities, positive qualities, before we actually even need them. Not in a way that we treat depression or we treat something negative. So, for example, mental toughness is something that you can work with a psychologist or a mental coach, right, and use it in a different way. It's not like you go to a therapist because you are highly stressed. That's, in simple words, the movement of positive psychology. Multidisciplinary approach in research that's everywhere is not only psychology. You have to be able to cooperate with a nutritionist, with a sport coach, with a strength and conditioning coach, with the athletic trainer, with a physiotherapist, kinesiology experts. You cannot just have your own opinion when you talk about an athlete tomorrow, for example. There's a whole team of people, and we all have to step in each other's shoes and see how you see it and how I see it, and try to benefit the athlete. That's pretty much a multidisciplinary approach. And of course, technology develops. As I said, in EEG, for example, now we have mobile EEGs. Before we didn't, so you can just wear it and do what you need to do, and we can record your brainwave activity. Performance psychology. What's this video? What do you think performance psychology is? It may not be what you think. Okay, why don't you watch that video? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna stop sharing that, and I'm gonna move to chapter 3, and let me find it. So chapter 3 is the first chapter of our second section of the book. Trying to share chapter 3 right here. Well, no, personality and support. And the thing here that we need to understand is that with the second section of our book, we're going to learn about participants, right? We have chapter 3, chapter 4, and chapter 5. Chapter 3 is important because if you want to work with students, athletes, patients, exercisers, it's not that simple. You need to know, for example, what makes them tick as individuals. So the information in this chapter right here will help us understand better this psychological makeup of the people that we may work with. And then we will have chapter 4 that focuses on virus theories, especially motivation. And chapter 5 focuses on arousal and anxiety. Okay, but let's finish chapter 3 now. And next week, we're going to go to chapter 4 and 5 and pretty much finish that second section of our book. All right, so personality. What is personality? This is usually every slideshow will start with a definition, characteristic, or blend of characteristics that makes us unique, right? I'm going to sip of my coffee, too much talking. All right, so as you can see, we'll see in a little bit in our figure, we'll have a psychological core all the way at the bottom, right? And then we'll have those typical responses, and then all the way up, we have the role-related behavior. And I think this will resonate. Figure 3.1, okay? So what's our psychological core? Psychological core is the real us, okay? This is the true us. It's very, very, as you can see on the left side, we go from internal to external. On the right side, we go from dynamic to constant. So it's very constant. Excuse me, it doesn't really change that easily. Also, it's one of those layers that are really, really deep. Not a lot of people will see. Okay, not a lot of people see. Very few people will know our core. Okay, and then we go to our typical responses. You know, what are you? Are you the joker in the class? Are you like the party animal? Are you the person who's always late? Are you the funny one? What are you? Are you the dog lover? Are you the feed person? Who are you? So based on your typical responses, you know, people will give you characteristics and names and so on and so forth. So that's what they usually see. Okay, and then all the way up is is behavior that we have based on our own, right? Different hats. So right now you're a student, you behave like this. If you're a student athlete, during the time of practice, you behave differently. With your significant other, you behave differently. With your parents, you behave maybe differently, okay? So that changes a lot. That's why it's highly dynamic all the way up there, right? And I hope all this makes sense. So that's a way to understand our personality structure. That's what I was trying to say. So these are examples of the psychological core is, for example, religious values, okay? Typical responses, you're shy or happy-go-lucky, right? And behavior as a student, partner, friend is the role-related behavior. Okay, I wanted you to remember that from this chapter. All right, many approaches to understand personality. It's so everybody's so attracted as a researcher, but even as like we want to know the personality of the other person. There's so many different approaches, but personality is not something tangible, right? So we'll go over them really quickly. So this is psychodynamic, not a lot of fancy anymore. As you can see, behavior is driven by several unconscious, constantly changing factors that often conflict with one another. You have to understand the person as a whole, which makes sense. Okay, not so popular anymore. The trait approach. Here, I want to stop for a second. Trait versus state. Trait versus state. That's something that we talk in psychology a lot, right? Trait is something, not a very scientific word, but it's a part of personality that doesn't change. So there are parts of your personality, and you can think about them, that no matter the situation, you react or behave the same way. So the trade approach says that pretty much we're stable, we don't change. Okay, no matter the situation, we are who we are. We're happy or we're shy, and so on and so forth. Again, not very popular because there are a lot of things that we cannot explain based on that approach. The big five. Okay, so the big five is one of the those traits that we use a lot in psychology. It's very popular, and you can see the five dimensions of personality highly used in the literature. Uh, I use an example sometimes in class, and I say, it's not that it tells you everything, but um, I've used it with my girlfriend in the past. It doesn't necessarily show you a lot, and it's not that you're trying to find a person that's exactly the same as you. That would be very boring, but at least you can see the compatibility. You know. So when we talk about neurotism, we talk about the nervousness, anxiety, depression, anger. That goes versus the emotional stability. So what are you? Extroversion, enthusiasm, sociability, assertiveness, high activity level, versus, of course, introversion. Okay, so what are you? And online, you can find the Big Five personality measurement tool for free. So you can take it and you can give it to a friend of yours or your significant other and just see what's up. Openness to experience has to do with originality, need for variety, curiosity, and then agreeableness, amiability, altruism, modesty has to do with that. And then consciousness has to do with constraint, achievement, striving, and self-discipline. So again, you can see where you stand, and then you can compare with somebody else, just for fun. All right. Just want to stop here and talk a little bit. Perfectionism, again, very well studied or widely studied, not well studied. Different types of perfectionism. The only thing I want to say here, you can have your own criteria. Self-oriented perfectionism. You can have some. You can compare your standards to the society's standards. So we have socially prescribed perfectionism, and then the third one is about pretty much assessing others, not yourself anymore. So assessing others, you like, for example, your significant other, right? That's other-oriented perfectionism, or your children tomorrow, or your friends, or your teammates. Okay. So I want to say about perfectionism. So we'll go back to the approaches. Situation approach means that our behavior depends on the situation or in the environment. You put somebody in an environment that is drug infested, and they're going to start using drugs. Okay, that's situation approach right there. Again, there are a lot of things that we can explain. Makes sense, but there are things that we can explain just by using the situational approach. Interaction. Now here we say the person is important, the situation is important, and the interaction is important. Okay, that's pretty popular. And also we have the phenomenological approach, which again talks about the situational personal characteristics, but here we talk about our own perception. You see that says that is a person's understanding. My understanding of my characteristics, my understanding of my environment, and how that affects my behavior. So it talks about perception. We're going to talk about perception a lot, right? How we see things, how we filter things, and how that affects our actions. Pretty popular. And then we have the biophysiological, physiosocial approach. There's a type up there. We have the whole person perspective, it's dynamic, and we take all this and we put them in somebody's culture or social context. Again, very, we don't have anything against it, but it's kind of brand new. So we need more evidence. All right, how can we measure personality, right? I talked about trading states. Remember, trade is something that is relatively stable, right? State is something that changes based on the circumstance. Now, we can measure that, but also we can, as we said, we can have those general versus situation-specific measures, okay? So pre-exam anxiety, that's a situation-specific anxiety assessment tool. And under those situation-specific measures, we have sport-specific because it's specific situation of life, right? So mental toughness in sport is a sport-specific measure. There are even measures that have to do with specific sports, right? That's even more specific. I said specific too many times. All right. One thing about measuring personality is do not try to avoid comparing my score with your score. Prefer to measure my score with my score a month ago or 2 weeks later. Okay? We have the intra-individual compared to inter-individual approach. Those are the do's and the don'ts. Nothing too fancy here. Have some examples. Type A behavior, as you can see, is associated with cardiovascular disease. Okay, and I hope you understand why we could have a relationship like that, right? What else is important here? The cognitive strategies, nothing too fancy. I'll skip all this. Okay, now I'll stop with this. I think that's the last thing in our slideshow. Now there's a big debate, right? Still, we'll have that debate, nature versus nurture. What's more important? As you can see here, we'll have this number. Sometimes we say up to 50%, you know, genetic, at least 50%. That is the latest I've seen is genetic. So if you get into a debate like that, at least 50% is genetic. It could be a little bit more, okay? So it looks like we're more like say towards like the genetic profile that you have, your personality is kind of more important than the environment. Not too much more, but it looks like your genetic base is the most, that takes the biggest share. Okay. All right, I'll stop sharing. I'll go back Just looking at me and fix my tie. All right, so we covered the feedback. We covered what we have for Sunday. We covered chapter 3, and we covered chapter 2 before 3. Okay, so let me know if you want anything. Tomorrow we have office hours. Log in to talk about anything. I'm open. If you have any questions before Sunday about what you have to submit until Sunday, again, let me know. Okay, I'm here. Have a great day. Have a great second week. And in the meantime, live intentionally, not habitually. Bye, guys.